Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to go to one of my neighbouring counties here in the south of the country, and we're going to return to a brewery who you've seen me review a couple of beers from before actually. So we're going to go a little bit to the northeast of me here in Skåne to Blekinge, and we're going to Karlshamn in the west of the county. So for this review we are going to have a look at yet another beer from Brygghus 19 or Brewhouse 19 as their name would translate into English, and we're going to have a look at the Triple Innovation today. So this one is a triple IPA coming in at 10.7% ABV, and this beer was released on the 1st of August 2020 as part of the August 2020 Lokal och Småskaligt assortment in Systembolaget here in Sweden. A little bit of a mouthful there, but yeah, this is review number 5 that I've done from this brewery. The last review that I released was the Festbock, which is their Doppelbock. Before that I reviewed the Siv, which was the collaboration beer that they did with Secret Sisters Brewing. Before that there was the International Haze, the collaboration with Heretic, and that's probably their best known and best rated beer so far. And then I think before that it was the Malmö I Love You, a collaboration with Höle Brewery, and then the reviews before that were a long time ago. That was the My Balalaika, which was either an Imperial Porter or Imperial Stout that I reviewed back in like 2015, 2016, something like that. So yeah, I think this is my 5th review from these guys, and it's my first triple IPA. This was the only triple IPA that I picked up actually in the Lokal och Småskaligt August 2020. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. This is a brewery that definitely have upped their game over the last little while, and the new brewer seems to be doing some really interesting things there actually. She's done a great job so far, I think. So very curious to see how this one turns out. Nice to return to Blekinge County, of course, and there are a good number of little microbreweries over there now that are worth checking out. So yeah, let's see how we go with this one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brygghus 19 before. No doubt you will see some more added to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there too. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brygghus 19 then, on to my brewery notes. So Brygghus 19, as I've told you already, are based in Karlshamn in the western part of Blekinge here in southern Sweden, and these guys were apparently the first microbrewery to open up in the county. So this brewery was founded back in 2012 by Dan Magnus Svensson, Magnus Karlsson and Mikael Lundell. The three men had worked together in the same company for a number of years, and then together they entered a home brewing competition. They won, and this prompted them to start their own microbrewery as a result. So apparently Karlshamn has one of the deepest ports in Sweden, and it also has quite a long tradition of brewing. The old brewery there was built in 1883, but then the building was demolished in 1982, and this brewery is actually located in an old dairy mill very close to that harbour actually. The larger kit at the brewery has a 2,000 litre per brew capacity, and they've also got a smaller kit for doing pilot brews as well to test new recipes and things like that. More recently, of course, these guys have scaled up quite recently. Over the course of 2019 they started issuing shares, and this has allowed them to invest heavily in the brewery. They brought in Ida Iversen as their new brewer, and they've invested a lot in new equipment. They've went on to brew around 100,000 litres of beer over 2019, and they've purchased a distillery as well to expand their kind of spirits operation too. Ida has introduced a lot of new recipes to the brewery, and over the course of 2020 they were planning to expand a bit further, but I think that has been hindered a bit by the coronavirus. But of course here in Sweden we've not been as affected by it, I guess, as other countries in terms of the economy, because the government didn't do a shutdown and things like that. But as of August 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 65 different kinds of beer. According to Untappd, on this date, the 19th of August, this one This brewery have produced 66 different beers according to Untappd. I'm not sure if that is wholly correct, because there might have been some beers that have just been released very, very locally and things, but yeah, according to Untappd, it's 66 different beers that these guys have released so far. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Brygghus Niton for the moment. Hopefully I can get over there and do a sort of meet the brewery interview with these guys at some point. That would be pretty cool, to interview the first brewery in Blekinge County. That would be an interesting one to do with one of the founders, and of course to get Ida on would be quite cool. She could well be the first female brewer that we would have on the channel, actually, on the Meet the Brewery section. That would be quite cool. So yeah, definitely something that I need to look into, actually. It'd be cool to interview these guys. There's lots of breweries, of course, here in the south of Sweden that I would like to meet for an interview, for a Meet the Brewery kind of thing. So something that I will look into at some point in the fairly near future. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Brygghus Niton, Brewhouse 19 for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. You can, of course, check out beernews.se as well. That's where I get most of the information on these Swedish breweries. And yeah, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the individual beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and have a taste of this beer itself then. So as you can see, the artwork of this one is a little bit different compared to the other ones, just a kind of light bulb actually, which is kind of interesting, with the hop flowers marking the filaments in there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, 473 milliliter can, this one, 10.7% ABV, triple IPA, and there you can see on the back there is the Brygghus Niton symbol, which is pretty damn nice actually. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. So yeah, let's get this guy out and see how we go. Oh right, this one is a bit darker. So this one could well be more of a West Coasty triple IPA than a New England. This looks interesting, definitely. Need to see, does it say? So it says that this one has oats in it, so corn malt and havre. So yeah, basically this one's got barley malt and oats in it, but no mention of wheat, so it definitely looks a little bit more like a West Coasty type triple IPA, but then again, if it has the oats in it, it should be very kind of smooth. So yeah, this is definitely the darkest triple IPA that I've come across in quite some time, since the era of the West Coast IPAs, if you like. So yeah, if we shine the light through this, this is a really, really rich, it'll come across as quite coppery, I think, on the, I think it'll come across as quite coppery on the camera there, but yeah, this one, it really is a very, very rich dark amber, almost kind of red in colour actually. It's got a really lovely red kind of tinge to it. There's about a quarter finger of a frothy kind of beige fawn head there. That's faded away to just be a very, very thin foamy layer. I think we've got about 2/3 of the can in the glass so far, but you can see there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but overall that does look pretty nice. But this one really looks more like a kind of imperial red or something like that in terms of its appearance. I haven't seen a beer, a triple IPA like this, as I say, since the you know, since it was mainly West Coast IPAs, or what we now call the West Coast IPA that was out there. But it looks a little bit like a barley wine or something, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's have a little look at this one and see how we got on. In terms of appearance, yeah, one of the darker triple IPAs I've come across in recent times. But let's have a little look at that aroma and see how we get on. Oh yeah, that's a big malty beast, that. And it's interesting because you can definitely smell the smoothness of the oats in there. There's definitely an element of that kind of thick, oaty, kind of creamy notes. Almost gives you the vibe a little bit of like rice pudding or something like that. It's definitely got a big bit of that kind of creamy quality coming out of it. Yeah, I like how this goes together. But very, yeah, very malty and very caramelly. I'm curious to see what this kind of flavour profile this is going to have, because it's very, on one side of the coin it's got a lot of brown sugar and a lot of sweetness to it, like a West Coast IPA, but then on the other hand it does have that kind of oaty smoothness in there, so I'm really curious as to what it how it turns out. But yeah, lots of nice kind of brown sugars to this one. A very, very kind of sweet caramel. It's got a little bit of a kind of toasty edge to it. There's maybe also a little kind of touch of treacle to this one, which is quite interesting. It's got a bit of that really dark, kind of caramelised brown sugar. So the thing that you would have with this, to get a colour like this, it's got, to some degree, it's dependent on what malts you've used. So yeah, but I would think to get a colour like this, you'd probably have to do a fairly long boil on this, because the longer you boil the beer, the more caramelised the sugars are going to get, and then the colour, of course, starts to get a bit more like this. So to get a kind of more coppery colour like this, yeah, you've got to have a fairly long boil. So this must have maybe a 2 hour, maybe 3 hour boil on it actually. So yeah, that's an interesting, that's definitely an interesting thing there. Of course, the examples when it comes to the boils on the beers would be some of the Dogfish Head series. Actually, it would be those kind of ones. I've still never tried those, 60, 90, 120 minute IPAs. I need to try those at some point. But yeah, this one looks as if it has had a fairly long boil. Either that or it's got some very kind of dark caramelly malts in it. But yeah, hell of a lot of brown sugar coming out of this one. Kind of akin to it's almost akin to a barley wine in fairness. And it's quite sweet as well. As I say, you get a little bit of that kind of treacly, molassesy kind of note out of it, but mainly it's a very sweet caramel, slightly toasted, definitely some kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes in there, and you can smell the kind of oaty creaminess. It's also got a little bit of a slightly Werther's Original type aroma to it, this beer. So that's quite interesting. To be honest with you, I don't get too much in the way of hoppiness out of this one. There's a little bit of earthiness. I wouldn't be surprised if this one is using a bit of Amarillo or Mosaic. The hops that come out of this are quite sort of orangey. The other option might be like Mandarina Bavaria. It's not going to be a Zaka, I don't think, and I don't think it's going to be Sabro either. Those are the other two obvious candidates, along with maybe Pacifica or Waiti, I think, is the other one from New Zealand. That will give you a little bit of orangey character. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this is pretty damn nice. So yeah, it's one that really grows on me. It does strike me more like a kind of West Coasty barley wine in a way, but it's definitely got a bit more of that West Coasty type IPA vibe and some really oily oranges in terms of the fruits. But yeah, a little bit earthy, little touch floral, not too much in the way floral though, kind of grassy, leafy almost. And you've got a wee bit of a, yeah, I'd say the fruits in this, it's got a little bit of an orangey character to it. There's a few little red fruity notes. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of cascade in this, just going from the way that some of these fruity notes have come out. So it's got a wee bit of an almost kind of figgy note to it, maybe a little bit of a kind of berryish quality, but yeah, quite oily and orange, I think, in terms of the fruity notes. So yeah, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but definitely one of the more West Coasty leaning triple IPAs in terms of its aroma that I've come across, but definitely a kind of oaty creaminess underpinning it actually. So yeah, let's have a taste of this and see how we get on. So this one is the Triple Innovation, a 10.7% triple IPA from Brygghus in Karlshamn in western Blekinge here in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange skål. That's pretty damn nice, I have to say. It's it is a big malty beast, that. It really is. Pretty damn boozy, I have to say. But yeah, it's definitely one of these ones that that will grow on you. This is one that will give you a kind of, put a bit of hair on your chest actually. I like how that, I do like how that goes together. Yeah, this one, it's definitely got a bit of that boozy note to it. I like it, but be aware with this one, it's not a triple IPA almost in the kind of same sense. This one is a little bit more like a, in a lot of the ways, this is a bit more like a kind of oldie or a barley wine or something like this. It's really kind of like that. It's really a more malty leaning beer, this one. I mean, it's quite obvious when you look at the kind of colour and things of this. This is a little bit more like a, I'd say this actually is a bit more like a barley wine than a kind of triple IPA, to be honest with you. And that's always one of my, from a technical perspective of brewing, I've always wondered where you kind of draw the line, because the paleo, the IPA, the double IPA, the barley wine, these beers are all related to each other through the hop to malt ratio. So where does triple IPA come in? I'm not quite sure about that, but yeah. But yeah, I would say that in fairness, it is more, this one is definitely more West Coasty. It does have a wee bit of the kind of oaty smoothness to it. It's maybe not quite got the bitterness of a sort of West Coast triple IPA, but yeah, everything else about this one is more of a kind of West Coast type beer, this one. But I think they've done a pretty solid job of this one. So I have to say, you know, thumbs up to Brygghus Neaton for trying something a little bit different. Is it as good as the International Haze? Don't know if you can really compare the two because they are very different. Let's stick the last of it in and just see if we get a little bit more haze out of this one. No, yeah, completely West Coast. I would have thought, you know, when you've got oats in it, you would think that there would be a little bit more haze. I don't think there is a wee bit of haze to it, in fairness, but I think this has been could it have been filtered? Not sure, but yeah, this one is it is a nice beer. This, it is quite solid, but a big malty beast rather than anything else. So yeah, I do like what they've done with this. This would be a nice winter. It would be quite a nice winter release, this one, actually, come to think of it, because it's a big malty beast. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. So, straight away with this beer, focuses on the malty side of things, as I said. So you can feel that oaty creaminess in the very centre of your palate there. And then around it, underneath that, it does have a little bit of a kind of brown bready type quality. That brown bready base, that really forms the baseline of the beer. When you move further towards the back of the palate, it really, you get a few bit more kind of grainy notes out of it, but on top of that, it's the oats that really kind of smoothen the whole thing out, to be honest with you. In the very centre of your palate, you've got quite a sweet caramel in there, maybe a little bit of a darker, boozy, treacly sort of thing. But as you move further out from that, it gets a little bit more kind of biscuity and a bit more, you know, biscuity and McVitie's digestive. Like, I really like how that pieces together. But yeah, it's, you know, this one is quite nice. It's quite a nostalgic beer for me, this. It reminds me of some of these, I think it was the Double Jack it was called, from Firestone Walker. It really reminds me of that. I think that was the first more boozy West Coasty double IPA that I had, actually, and it really reminds me of that in a lot of ways. So yeah, I definitely say that this is a more kind of yeah, there's no doubt in my mind this is a West Coasty IPA. So this is really a kind of unexpected surprise, if you like. I've been complaining on the channel for ages that we needed a few more West Coasty type things. So this one's turned out to be quite a nice surprise in that sense. But yeah, the malty side of things, I think we've kind of described all we really need to. Yeah, brown bready base. As I say, in the middle third of your palate, you've got a bit of that oaty kind of creaminess sitting there. Further forward, you've got a few woody elements to it, maybe a tiny little touch of nutty note. If you go to the very centre of your palate, then move forward, it's got a little touch of nuttiness there. Very centre of your tongue, there's a bit of a darker, kind of treacly sort of thing. A little bit of a sweeter caramel as you move out from that, and then further beyond that, it gets a little bit more McVitie's digestive, biscuity like. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of thicker breadiness towards the kind of back third of your tongue there, but yeah, a few grainy notes come out there as well. But let's focus on the hoppy side of this beer then. Yeah, back corners of the palate, there is a definite little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward on the sides of your palate, the earthiness does spread forward a little bit. You get some nice kind of floral aromaticity there, a little bit of a kind of darker, danky kind of quality to it, a little bit spicy, but then round the very front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a lighter sort of grassy kind of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, I think the green side of the hops really leans a bit more towards that darker floral side of things, but then on the front third of your tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters push their way out of the hops. So let's see how this one does there. So yeah, there's something a little bit classic about this beer, to be honest with you. It strikes me that it might be, you know, something like a little bit of Chinook maybe, Chinook Cascade, and maybe a bit of Amarillo possibly Mosaic. There's one of the orangey hops in this, but yeah, there is definitely something a wee bit, you know, sort of old school about the hop profile of this beer. So yeah, if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a few of the darker kind of grapefruity notes, and some of the dankness. You do get a good bit of dankness on the side of your palate there. That makes me think a bit of Chinook. Columbus might be the other one, but I suppose this one's not. It could be Columbus and Chinook, right enough. But yeah, there is a bit of that kind of sort of danky resinous and kind of spicy floral note there. Columbus, of course, is the one that's going to give you the more kind of spicy notes, whereas Chinook is going to give you the more sort of you know, the kind of sort of resinous qualities, if you like, and it's Chinook, I think, that's more likely to give you a bit of that darker grapefruit. So yeah, as you come further forward from that though, you do start to get a little bit more of a kind of, it gradually develops and becomes a little bit more sort of orangey. You can feel as you come further forward on that front third of your palate, it gets gradually more oily and oily and oily and orangey rather than anything else. And around the kind of tip of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of figgy, sort of, you know, juicy kind of figgy quality coming out of this one, which is quite interesting actually. It does have a wee bit of that almost red fruity note that you sometimes get from Cascade. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wee bit of Cascade in here, because on the tip of the tongue you do get a little bit of that kind of berryish quality that it will sometimes give you. Could there be a little bit of Williamette or something in here? There is just one or two, some of the earthiness and some of the kind of slightly berryish notes that come out of this do remind me of Williamette a little bit. It's an interesting point, that. But yeah, this is a very old school West Coasty beer, this one. 10.7%, you know, yeah, it's definitely in triple IPA category, but this one, it really reminds me of the, oh, is it the Double Jack it was called? I think it was called Double Jack. It really reminds me of which was the first ever beer I had from Firestone Walker Brewing Company over in the States. It really reminds me of that actually. There's a lot of vibes coming out of this one, but obviously the oaty creaminess that this beer has is a little bit different. You do, the creaminess, as I say, this is more of an oily beer rather than anything else, but it does have a little bit of that oatiness in the malt base, like I said. So yeah, I like how this one goes together. Let's talk about the mouthfeel then. So this beer is a big oily beast, I don't think there's much doubt about that. Definitely full bodied, carbonation is very smooth. The whole feel of this beer is pretty damn oily rather than anything else. On the hoppy side of things, this one's not high IBU. This must only be about 30, maybe 40 at a push. But the IBU that's there, in fairness, it does linger a little bit. It could be 50 IBUs at an absolute maximum, but it's certainly nowhere near as big and resinous as you'll get from some of the other West Coasty type IPAs that you know, back in the day you'd be talking about 70, 80 IBUs at least for a double. You know, that's not even considering what you would have for a triple. Probably if it's a triple you'd go all the way to 100 saturation point. But yeah, this one's a lot lower than that. It's more the kind of New Englandy bitterness you're getting out of this, but at the same time it has the West Coasty oiliness to it, which is nice. That suits the orangey flavours that the beer has. It's a bit difficult to tell with this one whether it would be, you know, Mosaic or Amarillo that's in this. The earthiness might suggest more Mosaic, but at the same time some of the oiliness suggests that it's the oiliness of the orangey suggests it's Amarillo. It could be both. Who knows? But yeah, quite an oily beer, this one, rather than anything else. Definitely full-bodied, 50 IBUs. The malt base, like I said, is quite smooth, and again, it's quite oily. It's got a good degree of sweetness to it, but a little bit of a toasty character comes out further into the aftertaste, as I said, and the fruits, for me, are quite oily in this one as well. So this is just a big oily beast of a triple IPA, most definitely more West Coasty leaning, not quite with the bitterness that you'd expect of a West Coast, right enough, but then again there has been that trend in recent times where bitterness is dropping in favour of more kind of juicy fruits, if you like, but definitely a big oily beast of a triple IPA. So yeah, this is a really interesting one, I think, from Brygghus Neaton. With this one, you know, did they need to do a triple IPA here? That's the thing. I mean, I wonder, maybe this beer would have worked out as a, you know, an 8.5–9% West Coast double IPA. I think this would be pretty good. So if they can take this base that they have here and translate that into a West Coast IPA, just make it a little bit more bitter. Please don't go down the route of, you know, 40 IBUs in a West Coast IPA. It's just a waste in my mind. You know, create a sort of 70-ish IBU West Coast IPA on the base that you have here, and I think they really could be on to a winner with this one. This is a nice beer. It's a little bit, how do you say, it is a little bit like a barley wine in some ways. It's got a few kind of barley wine-ish qualities to it, but I like what they've done with this. This is quite a quirky beer. It wasn't what I expected at all, definitely more West Coasty leaning. But I do like how it goes together. It's a nice big orangey and big caramelly beer, and when it comes to the West Coast side of things, good bit of caramel, good bit of an oily orange for me. That sort of ticks the boxes. So yeah, this is one that I've really enjoyed. But just be aware, this isn't one of your big kind of hazy juice bomb kind of triple IPAs. This is an old school West Coast thing, very much akin to what you would have found back in the day from, you know, Green Flash, Stone Brewing. Who else are we missing? Yeah, you know, these kind of classic West Coast breweries. Actually, it's definitely a classic West Coast triple IPA, this one. So a nice change of pace, I have to say. So thumbs up to Brygghus Neaton for this one, actually. But let's leave it at that. I think I'm kind of rambling now, to be honest. So yeah, this one was the Triple Innovation 10.7% West Coast triple IPA from Brygghus Neaton in Karlshamn in the western part of Blekinge, here in the south of Sweden. Really enjoyed reviewing this one. I can feel the booze going to my head a little bit, which is probably why I'm rambling a little bit, but I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brygghus Neaton as well. We will return to these guys at some point soon. Check out all my social media, check out some of the other beers from Brygghus Neaton. If you do get the chance to try the International Haze, that's an awesome beer. I do like this one, and I would love to see them use the base that they have here to create a few more West Coast IPAs, you know, slightly more bitter versions. That's the one thing I think that this beer really lacks, is just being a little bit more bitter. I think you have to choose. Are you going for a New England or are you going for a West Coast? This one is like, you know, 80-90% West Coast. It just needs a little bit more bitterness, but it's still a very nice beer in my mind. So yeah, this one, the Triple Innovation, Triple IPA, West Coast leaning, I think definitely, from Brygghus Neaton in Karlshamn, Blekinge, here in the south of Sweden. Slange, skål, make sure you check out Brygghus Neaton, have a taste of this beer, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slange, skål, cheers.